Hi, everyone, and thank you, Sarah. Welcome. As I noted in the chat, I'm a program manager with the Arctic Research Program that sits within the Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program, and also a co-lead of the Field Operations Community of Practice. If we could move to the next slide, what I'm going to do is walk everyone through sort of an introduction to the Field Operations Community of Practice, what we do, why we do it, and what innovations we've made in the last couple of years. Uh, so uh, Annually, we are responsible for, under the current biennial implementation plan, responsible for coordinating among the federal agencies supporting field work. So that Currently the primary focus is on marine based field work, but we're also expanding into other areas as appropriate. And the main purpose of our work is to share information among researchers and communities about research before, during, and after, to avoid conflict, to increase synergies, to increase collaboration, and sharing of data and other information. Um, you'll see on the right-hand side of the slide here, we're implicated in about 21 different deliverables under the current biennial implementation plan. But you'll see on the right here the primary sort of set of work plan or deliverables that we have under this biennial implementation plan, including the Arctic system interactions, coordinated interdisciplinary observations, the monitoring and prediction, modeling and prediction, communication about field activities with communities, and promoting and supporting good practices for improving diversity and inclusion, and engaging communities, and in particular indigenous people in the field work that we actually conduct. If you could move to the next slide. So, as far as an annual set of deliverables, one of the things that we were responsible for, and actually relish developing, I think, for the community, is developing what everybody commonly knows now as a research vessel matrix, which basically we put up every year. We've also added this year, in response to community input, we've also added a matrix of mooring locations, and that's to alert people to where they are, to avoid potential damage to those moorings, since often they're very expensive, if not impossible to replace. And then we also host pre and post field season meetings, and post those to the IARPIC website, uh, including the recordings. And then one of the things that we do as a regular course of business is really try to promote practices that improve safety and inclusiveness in field environments, and other good field practices. And you'll see on the right hand side that the matrix, including moorings, as well as the pre and post field season meetings, are already posted on the website, and the safe and inclusive field environment information is actually incorporated into each of our meetings, and you'll see that demonstrated today. If you could move to the next slide, please. So again, the goal of the vessel matrix is to provide an opportunity for coordination and collaboration among the research community, and also to improve and increase outreach activities associated with that field work. Um, it's also important to share information with communities, so that they know, so that they can identify visually any vessel that happens to be offshore, working in their waters, or if it's more distant, they at least know what those vessels are actually doing, and how to contact the bridge and the chief scientist if necessary to deconflict any potential movements or other activities. And then finally, well, I guess I covered that already, but it's to increase the awareness about vessels to prevent any potential issues between scientists and communities. If we can move to the next slide. And this panel on the right hand side is just an example of one of the entries on the vessel matrix. One of the things that we've been doing over the past year is really expanding the coverage of the vessel matrix, and that includes equal consideration for foreign research campaigns in the Arctic. Anyone that lives and works in Alaska knows, you can have various foreign research vessels from uh, uh, all different countries, including Korea, Japan, Norway, and others, Canada, working offshore. So it's an opportunity to we've worked with the State Department and other colleagues and agencies to basically increase and share that information. And the acronym there is Marine Scientific Research, which is how the whole process that the United States government has around reviewing these cruise plans and actually uh, providing letters of consent from the United States to work in our exclusive economic zone. Um, We've also increased the inclusion of fisheries as well as mapping operations, and I see Meredith Westington is online. So if you have questions about some of the mapping work that is going on the interagency level as well as the NOAA level, I would encourage you to ask questions away. We actually have the appropriate people in the room to respond to some of those requests. And then finally, we've really tried to expand the communications products, and we're looking forward to working with various contacts and colleagues to improve the communications products that we distribute to various communities throughout Alaska and the Arctic. Can you move to the next slide, please? So again, through the mooring matrix, which is a relatively new innovation, we have a colleague from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution who had been on behalf of the community maintaining a mooring matrix with the major players in the Alaskan or Pacific Arctic. And he handed that over to us so that we could maintain it and actually put some daylight on it and share it with the broader community. And the goal is to inform the scientific community and vessel operators about the locations of all those moorings that are presently deployed in the Bering, Chukchi, and Beaufort. And that again reduces the risk of damage to the moorings, as well as facilitates collaboration between science activities. And finally, and really excitingly, um, we've also added those mooring locations to RMAP, and I believe we actually have an RMAP person online as well, thanks to the generosity of National Science Foundation and Allison Gaylord, who's also online. Next slide, please. So, as far as coming attractions is concerned, we are planning to host the post field season meeting on January 17th, 2024, from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. I encourage everyone online to join that meeting. We are still working on the exact planning of that meeting, but we're hoping to have as many as possible of the folks that were out in the Arctic to present all of their most I guess their recent early findings from their work that's taken place over the past several months. And then we're also working with AUS and the marine ecosystems community of practice and the sea ice community of practice to to begin the data collection for the pre-field season meeting at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium. So if you happen to be coming to that meeting, I encourage you to look out for us. I think we're still in the planning phases of that, but we will have a presence there, and we'll look forward to see you there. With that, I guess I will turn first ask if anybody has any questions, but then turn it over to Renee, my colleague Renee Crane, please.
Any questions for Dave? I think we can go ahead. The next item is, I'd like to introduce Emily Idem, Dr. Emily Idem and Dr. Lori Jaranek from Oregon State University, the College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, to talk about their the award they received and the work that they did on the Chief Scientist training cruise. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Emily and Lori.
Thanks, Renee. Let me bring up my slides here. Okay, can everyone see the slides okay? Perfect. So I wanted to give an overview. If you were at the AICC meeting in the summer, this is a lot of the same information, but I wanted to share it with the broader community about an early career training program that we conducted last summer. And first, a big thank you. So this program was designed to build up the cohort of early career researchers who are comfortable planning, leading, and helping to execute seagoing Arctic cruises, specifically on the icebreakers that are available in the fleet. And we really appreciate NSF sponsoring this effort. Frank Prack was a big supporter and came up to Seward to talk to participants. And we also got a lot of support from UNOLS and AICC through Doug Russell, who also came up to Seward to present. And we had fantastic support from the Sekuliak logistical staff, captains and crew this trip. They gave a lot of their time to make this work. We also had John Farrell from ARC, Lloyd Peacock Jr. from UIC, Carla Heidelberg from USC, and Chris Van Scheer come and provide additional mentorship. Jules Humman came from UH to provide UH DAS training, and the Seward Marine Center staff provided great assistance. So this was very much a team effort. So we started developing this program about a year ago. We had an application period in January through February. It was a somewhat short timeline just due to logistical constraints for posting this opportunity and soliciting participants, but we had a very impressive response. We had 53 applicants, most of whom were very well qualified. We could not serve that many, but there was obviously a lot of demand in the community for this type of training. And we had applicants from more than 30 universities, so very diverse university types, as well as agencies, and then even a local Alaska school. So lots of good interest. We reviewed applications with 3 independent reviewers, and we were really trying to meet NSF requests by evaluating the applications based on, who was ready to start diving in and writing proposals and was eligible to get US federal proposals to use these icebreakers. So we were looking for people who seemed like they would be submitting proposals in the next couple of years and needed that extra support to feel confident that they could request these resources. We recruited a cohort of 14 early career researchers. We exceeded our goal of 12. We were able to take a larger group. And that included 9 faculty, 2 postdocs, one of whom was stepping into a faculty role. Sarah came as the NOAA fellow. It was great to have her on board. And then we had 2 advanced grad students, one of whom got a postdoc offer while we were out. So really great cohort of people. The program was divided into 2 parts. We had an extensive virtual component before the cruise, which is typical. We basically tried to walk everybody through the whole cruise planning process. We introduced them to how to do ship time requests, how to build out your list of your chemical inventory, all these sorts of things that a chief scientist has to be responsible for. We then traveled to Seward and had a 1-day pre-cruise workshop at the Seward Marine Center. We got a lot of excellent feedback about that. The only negative feedback was, man, that was a lot to stuff into a day. Can it be 2 days if this is offered again? And we had a lot of good guest presenters come and make that a rich experience. We leveraged a transit of Sikuliak, and we actually got some negative feedback in the proposal review that, you know, maybe a transit isn't that great. Maybe you need dedicated ship time for this. I would agree that some of the temperate cruises have benefited from dedicated ship time, but in the Arctic, there just aren't that many resources available. There's the Sikuliak and Healy, they have a lot of commitments. So we felt fortunate to be able to add on to a transit. And Sarah can confirm or deny, but I felt like that worked out really well. We had a lot of time to do stations and a lot of time in between to have discussions and presentations and go tour the ship facilities. So I think it was actually a great setup. If anything, we would have benefited from 1 or 2 extra days at sea, but it worked out well. And then we had some post-cruise follow-up. We solicited feedback, and we're working with participants to make sure they are able to analyze some of the samples they collected. So hopefully they have some sea data to write new proposals. I can give a little bit more details on the components. The pre-cruise workshop included information about the Seward Marine Center. So what do you need to know if you're going to start shipping pallets of stuff to this facility? What does the loading process look like? Frank came and talked about NSF Arctic logistics. Doug talked about UNOLS and how the ship time request systems worked. Carla gave an excellent session on a topic that a lot of people wanted to hear about, which was the interpersonal dynamics of how to be a chief scientist. How do you prepare your team before they go? How do you deal with conflicts? How do you manage all the expectations? And then there was a good UHDAS session just to sort of demystify how you use that data at sea. We had a lot of excellent tours on the ship. I've been out many times. I learned so much. You know, I had never had anyone sit down and explain all the different wire types and when you might use those. Ethan Roth gave some great sessions about things like how to conduct ice stations, what tools are available, how a lot of the underway systems worked. Emily Shimada presented a lot on the computing room and all of the data streams that are coming in, and also about the MARIS program and culture at sea. Chris Van Scheer came representing the NSF Center of Excellence, MARSAM, which provides seagoing coring. And I think that was a hugely beneficial resource for participants to engage with and realize, you know, you can ask for help from these centers and they will come and support your research. And they have really nice people to work with. Lori gave some presentations on administration and sort of the big picture. We talked about the CSOP, so just expectations for ethical research in the Arctic, how to engage with communities. Lloyd Peacock gave us his perspective on, you know, as a rural resident, what are some of the sentiments about seagoing research? How can we provide better communication? And while we were at sea, Lloyd facilitated daily communications with about 60 people representing communities throughout the region. A hallmark of the program was that we had enough ship days and the right number of participants to delegate 2 acting chief scientists per day. So these people were responsible for creating the plan of the day, keeping tabs on operations, communicating with the bridge, and then also giving the captain sort of a 24, 48, 72-hour outlook at the end of the day, which meant they had to go poll the incoming next day chief scientists about what was going on. They also had to write a daily cruise report, and they worked with Lloyd to get those messages out to communities every day. So it was a good immersive experience of, okay, what do I actually have to do as a chief scientist in the moment? And again, the only negative feedback we got on that experience was, man, I wish I'd had more than one day to be chief scientist. So I think everybody's ready to go and take on these leadership roles. We also talked about post-cruise expectations. So, you know, post-cruise reporting is really valuable to the UNOL system. We're trying to help build that culture of having people do that. And then we also had a lot of time at sea to have science presentations, and we got everybody together and sort of did some lightning round brainstorming about new proposals. That got a lot of positive feedback. I think it really encouraged people to go home and start, you know, developing these ideas and getting them submitted to turn into projects. So I'll just close out with a few photos and some thoughts for the future. We got overall really great feedback. You know, we had a wide array of different activities. If anything, we might have packed a little too much into the cruise. It was pretty action-packed. But I think we built a good community of people. One of the biggest things we got feedback on was people just appreciated the chance to meet their peers and also work across disciplinary groups. You know, we had people working on genetics, people working on paleoceanography, people working on atmospheric dynamics. And I think that's the sort of experience they're going to have in real life. They're going to be on these ships as chief scientists, trying to represent diverse interests, diverse specialties, and make everything work together so everybody gets the samples that they need. Okay. Scroll through these quickly. So in thinking about the future, we would love to offer this program again. We got over 50 applications. We also know that we missed a lot of people because there was a sea ice conference happening the week that we were proposing to do this cruise. So I think there would have been a lot more applicants if we hadn't had that conflict. The Seward to Nome route on Sikuliaq was a great option. It was really nice for people to see Sikuliaq's home port. The Bering Sea was a good site because it's really shallow, so we didn't use up a lot of wire time collecting different stations. We were able to launch the small workboat. And people also got a view of Nome port logistics. You know, we got there and there was a barge in a parking spot and Nome had lost power. So we had to deal with those sorts of challenges on the fly. And every PI I've talked to who's worked at a Nome has had something like that happen that they've had to deal with. So I think that was a good experience overall. We've also brainstormed other options, and we do realize that there would be an advantage to getting people farther north to actually be able to do some ice stations. You know, we might recruit some participants in future efforts that have different scientific interests. In talking to participants, we also thought that maybe 8 to 10 days would be an ideal time frame, if not a little bit longer. So, you know, we could picture doing something like a Dutch to Dutch transit. We were interested in the possibility of working with Healy. You know, even be awesome if we could do some sort of international program like through the Northwest Passage and help people sort of conceptualize how to navigate those international logistics because there's a lot of extra chief scientist responsibility in that space. And I'll leave you with this slide. I think the quote at the upper left was one of my favorites. One of our participants came in with very low expectations and I thought it was really great. So I think we accomplished all of our goals of building a new seagoing cohort. And I will stop there. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you for walking us through that, Emily. Questions for Emily? Lauren? Go ahead, Jesse.
Hi, yeah, Emily. Very, very great talk. I think this is a great program, and I didn't even really know about it. A couple of questions. So one, you did mention that there was some atmospheric dynamics focus, but in the future, do you intend to do like more interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary focused work on these cruises? So for instance, having the ECRs look at how the ocean measurements link with the atmosphere more directly?
Absolutely. You know, we really tried to pull together a cohort of people that, you know, again, we're ready to hit the ground running, writing proposals. And it turned out that we sort of were able to loosely subdivide people into folks who were really interested in the water column and people who are really interested in the seabed. But how we build the program really depends on who applies, right? I hope that we get more interest in the future in thinking about atmospheric dynamics. You know, we had one person on this trip, Seth Zippel, who was interested in that. But if we had other people come who were interested not only in like air-ocean interactions, but more of the meteorological dynamics as well, you know, that would be fantastic. Let's try to get 2 or 3 of them involved so they can form their own sub-cohort, but then also get experience, you know, working with people looking at marine mammals or plankton, etc.
Yeah, I'll definitely put in a plug for that. Not just the meteorology, but the chemistry side of the atmosphere. My first cruise was on the Healy, and I was the only atmospheric scientist. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences because I learned so much about how the ocean biology and biogeochemistry has everything to do with what we see in the air. So it was really rewarding. And along those lines, I would love to forward this information to some of my students. So is there a way we can keep up to date on the next potential cruises? Because I think that would be a good opportunity for some more atmospheric chemists and physicists to be involved too.
If we're able to do this again, we're definitely going to push it to all the major Arctic listservs. So through IARPIC, through UNOS, through the Arctic Icebreaker Committee. If you have other, you know, listservs or social media outlets that would be good, please send them to me and we will include those if we do this again in the future.
Okay, yeah, I have some ideas. I'll email you some. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Sam, glad you could join us. Go ahead. We can't hear you if you're talking, Sam. Well, I'm very interested in what you have to say. I'm glad you could join us. I hope you can hear us okay. Other questions? Frank, I see you came on. Lots of credit goes to Frank for really helping this project go forward. And
well, I'll try to speak for Sam.
okay,
We're still working through the process to establish what the Healy schedule is for 2024 and beyond, but we hope that that's going to get resolved here shortly. And then we'll have a better idea, but we are requesting to do the Ghost Ship ARCO 1 line across the Arctic, as well as other projects around Alaska. And we'll see how that comes together in a schedule and a ship track. So stay tuned.
That's great news.
And
Yeah,
and the other thing that Sam might have been wanting to say, if he could, was that the Coast Guard has stood up a polar coordination office for planning, and they have a request on the street right now for folks submitting information about ship time requests for FY 2026 and beyond. And so if people have ideas about what they want to do in future years using Healy, to get those in. I think the deadline is November 15th. So that's a initial kind of gathering of information, but they'll continue to update that over time as people submit their proposals and find out whether they're funded or not.
I'll just add to what Frank said, in that Healy has expressed, well, PEC area, U.S. Coast Guard, Healy have all expressed interest in supporting a similar chief scientist training effort on Healy. And so we're just trying to work out when that might be. And we have a proposal pending to see if we can fund that as well. So hopefully we can get all the stars to align in the future and have another effort in the near future.
thank you. Meredith?
Let's see. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, so I find this pretty fascinating. When I first learned about it, I guess earlier this year, I was trying to learn more to see where we could plug in with Seascape Alaska, so take advantage of the transits to fill data gaps in bathymetry. Because I was learning about it so late in the game, we were never able to really try to, collaborate, but there were some email exchanges going on at the time. But I think there were two things that came up. One was about seeing if we had any influence on where the transits might go. And then the other one had to do with backscatter calibration. And I think talking with Ethan on the Sekuliak, there's some other stuff going on there that maybe over this winter we might be able to make some progress in that zone. But the one thing that I didn't have my act together in time was a tool in order to help make decisions about where to put transits. So I can't remember if I mentioned this to the group, but I was going to put it in the chat if I can figure out where my mouse is. So the link in the chat is to this Bathy coverage report tool. And what we added into it is the ability to add a transit line. So it's really just sort of a pre-planning tool. But my hope was that maybe we could start to, work across into the research community, show them these kinds of tools to be able to help figure out where they could potentially plan for acquisition in such a way that would help us fill gaps. So the transit tool, you can just click some lines. You can also export it as a GPX file for Rose Point. Anyways, it'll create like a fake kind of swath, because you get a little bit wider swath if the water is deeper. And so the idea is maybe if you just like bump over like 500 meters or something like that from an area that is transited frequently, because that Seward to Nome area, I think, has got loads of track lines going up and down. I was like, maybe if we just bump over a little bit, and the multi-beam is on. That's my other question. Then, maybe we would start to fill gaps. But
and I think we can also help make sure you coordinate with the science technician group that operates on the Healy or the Sukulak going forward. So I remember talking with you, Meredith, when this cruise was getting ready to go. Any other questions or thoughts about the chief scientist training cruise?
Well, I'll just say that Sam put the information in the chat about where to submit requests for ship time on Healy. So deadline's 15th of November for 2026.
Thank you. Okay, should we go on to our next speaker? I would like to introduce Katie Smith. Katie currently works with the National Science Foundation as a contractor. She's in the Research Support and Logistics Program. She works with Frank and myself and Kate Ruck from a company called QED Enterprises. She comes to us from the Ocean Drilling Program. And today she's here to talk to us as a member of MARAS, the Committee of UNOLS for Maintaining an Environment of Respect aboard ships. And UNOLS, as many of you know, is the University National Oceanographic Laboratory System, which serves to coordinate and maintain ocean-going academic research. So I'll turn it over to you, Katie, to tell us more about MARAS.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Right.
Go ahead. Yep.
Awesome. So, hi everyone, I'm Katie, and I'm presenting to you as a member of MARAS today. So taking off my National Science Foundation hat, putting on my MARAS hat. I previously worked at Texas A&M University with the JOIDES Resolution Science Operator that works with the International Ocean Discovery Program. And so I was really interested in bridging that gap between the UNOLS system and the drilling program. And MARAS has done some really incredible work. So if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so I'll give you a little background for those of you who don't really know about UNOLS and the academic research fleet. UNOLS is the University National Oceanographic Laboratory System. The roots of UNOLS go back to the 1960s, often referred to as the golden years of oceanography. There are currently 58 national laboratories and academic institutions that are members of UNOLS. And UNOLS coordinates access to the ARF for the academic research fleet. The ARF currently consists of 17 technologically advanced ships and submersibles and autonomous vehicles that enable scientists to conduct research from the poles to the Great Lakes to the deep sea floor. 70% is funded by NSF and the rest through interagency funds, mostly the Office of Naval Research and NOAA. If you can go to the next slide. So an overview for MARAS. MARAS is, again, maintaining an environment of respect aboard ships, which is a committee of UNOLS. The purpose of UNOLS is to cultivate and preserve a culture of inclusion on ships and provide recommendation to the UNOLS group, a larger community regarding resources and best practices. Increasing safety on ships and in the deep field is a cornerstone of successful field work. So we hope to provide any help we can to the larger community for better ship field work. All right, next slide. So the beginnings of MARAS started in 2015 as an ad hoc council for the Pregnancy, Privacy, and Harassment Committee. This is a subcommittee that was charged with researching existing policies and practices aboard vessels of the ARF specifically regarding protected personal information, medical history forms, participation at sea for pregnant women, and provisions for nursing women, and other issues as identified. There was a large workload that expanded through this effort. So this committee was transitioned into a permanent committee of UNOLS as MIRAS in 2017, taking on other initiatives and actions to improve shipboard culture and best practices. Next slide, please. So these are the current MIRAS members and support staff. We are actually going to be onboarding another member soon. Each membership term is 3 years with the possibility of a second term, consists of a chair, members, and the UNOLS support staff. We meet roughly quarterly and ad hoc as needed. We vote as a group and may provide resources as the MIRAS committee to the UNOLS community. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of text here. Feel free to screenshot, but didn't want to shortchange any of our efforts. So some of our ongoing initiatives and stuff that we've completed in the past are, as a committee, we provide recommendations and best practices to UNOLS to overcome workplace barriers. We also consult and work directly with all groups working on or with the ARF, including ship operators, crew, technical staff, and scientists. We assist with policy formation, such as those involving pregnancy, lactation on board, and other respectful healthcare on board. We support the NSF field safety requirements with checklists and trainings regarding interpersonal violence prevention and response planning and training. We provided DEI questions to add to post-cruise assessment reporting tailored to address these NSF requirements. And we provide community listening sessions annually to get feedback and share what's being done to address past workplace issues that have been brought to our attention. Next slide. So our 2023 activities included working with the ARF technical teams, providing them with field safety toolkit resources and codes of conduct to increase ship safety. We helped compile period products and dispensing infrastructure for the ARF vessels. There was an ASLO town hall focused on best practices for preventing sexual harassment in remote fieldwork settings. There was an RV Tech breakout session. So RV Tech is the Research Vessel Technical Enhancement Committee, which provides a forum for discussion among technical support groups of the ARF. And this breakout session was about creating more gender inclusive environments on board. There will also be a similar breakout session at an upcoming Ocean Sciences Town Hall. Next slide, please. So a major product that MIRAS helped create was the Shipboard Civility module program. If you want, you can take a picture of the QR code to go straight to that page on the UNOL site. This is a 3-module program. The first 2 modules are 10-minute videos, and the third is a flyer from each ship operator institution on how to report sexual assault, harassment, and discrimination. The first model is spearheaded by NOAA and focuses on how to create safe and respectful working conditions on board, while encouraging shipboard participants to raise concerns and giving them the confidence that their issues will be addressed. The second module is spearheaded by NSF and ONR in collaboration with MIRAS on how to address shipboard civility situations specific to being on research vessels. Next slide, please. The third module is a flyer that is required of ship operator institutions on how to prevent harassment and discrimination at sea and how to report complaints while on board and on shore and who is their contact on shore. There is also a supplementary discussion guide to aid group dialogue when watching modules 1 and 2, and we suggest to watch this as a group before taking part on an expedition. Next slide. So here's the UNOLS Code of Conduct, again, a QR code if you want to go right there. It is broken into standards and ground rules focused on treating people with respect and collegiality, and banning discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying in UNOL settings and in meetings. Next slide, please. And to supplement that code of conduct, MIRAS has its own code of conduct, which applies to members and collaborators of MIRAS while participating in MIRAS committee meetings, events, and other communications. So we encourage others to share and utilize this code of conduct for their own group or committee meetings to foster a safe space and a healthy dialogue. Next slide. So again, a ton of text. I'm going to post all of this in the chat, but we've compiled a list of resources, including UNOLS materials, useful web pages, trainings, and some papers that complement the MIRAS mission. So I'll post that in a second. And if you go to the last slide, this is the UNOLS contact form and the mailing list. You can sign up for communication with the broader UNOLS community or specifically with MIRAS. That link is also going to be in what I send. So with that, I will stop and take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Katie. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, thanks, Katie. Hey, one thing I just was thinking when you talked about that is from some of my past work, NOAA observers on fishing boats. There's been some problems there. There's probably some folks on board listening out there with NOAA, and some of your stuff about creating a climate and all that, the work that's already been done might be good just to pass over, and it might be able to be rebranded and adjusted and given out to some of the boats that host NOAA observers on board, and kind of spread the great work you've done across a broader fleet. Because I think some of the fishing boats that might be good for, and I don't know if there's any formal training on that. I think the reporting stuff is all pretty well lined up, but creating that kind of climate on board it'd be good stuff. So just a small comment. Thanks.
No, I think that's great, and absolutely encourage either to use the modules that we have or to contact us to help transition between like a ARF fleet vessel and a NOAA vessel. I know when I worked with IODP, we adjusted this as well. We used a discussion guide for our Life at Sea presentation that we give before every expedition. So definitely resources that can be translated outside of UNOLS.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because NOAA was involved in developing these materials, but it was probably mostly focused on more of the academic research or monitoring vessels, and there may be more we can do to help get it aimed at fishing fleet as well. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, just if you went back one slide, there was a reference there to a woman from Fugro down towards where is it now? Yeah, the last one, Stuart, I think Helen or Helena. And she focused on issues like just having survival suits that match the size of women, so that you're not just ordering standard equipment for men, and then you have people that have smaller frames and that this equipment doesn't work for them. And that was a really significant recommendation that I think the fleet should pay a lot more attention to. Thanks.
Absolutely. And again, as far as transferring this out, like it should be applied not only to the academic research fleet, but when we all think, I mean, in this field operation community practice, how this can get transitioned into other deep field work issues, having gear that fits, that should not ever be a barrier or concern when you're going out.
Yeah, and the modules themselves could apply to any sort of laboratory or field setting as well. So I think in terms of recognizing and handling inappropriate behavior and other actions, even if the specific reporting mechanisms may be different, but there's a lot to be said for the commonalities among different field settings. Thanks for that. Any other questions for Katie? Okay, we can turn to our third speaker. We are a little ahead of schedule, but if we do end up ending early, that's fine. I'm not sure anyone will mind having a few minutes back in their day. But do feel free to ask questions or circle back on any of the earlier presentations if you wish. So let me introduce Captain Steve White. He's with us from the Marine Exchange of Alaska to talk today. And I think your background from the Coast Guard is very relevant. We're really happy to have you come and talk with us about Arctic Watch. Thanks so much.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Renee. And good to see everybody here. And I see some co-workers, shipmates that I've worked with in the past, and some are familiar with this. So if anybody's got comments they want to add at the end on Arctic Watch and what's going on here, and I'm going to give a lot of information really quick because this is a 10-minute conversation and talk about a big program. So next slide. So Marine exchanges, just some people aren't familiar with them. They're around the lower 48 and one in Alaska, and really they're to a hub of information, a place to collaborate and share information from the sea to the shore and vice versa. And the way we used to communicate in different ports, you know, was everything from flashing lights and talking on bullhorns and telegraph eventually. And then, you know, we now progressed into another age of communication, and not only for detecting vessel movements, but for communicating with vessels out there. That's opened up so much in today's age. And we can use this technology not to just manage a port, but to manage the seaways up there. Next slide, please. So the Marine Exchange of Alaska, I'm not going to talk too much on this, but I will talk about kind of on the left side of the screen there, marine safety sites. We maintain about 150 of these sites throughout Alaska. They have any number of equipment on board, which range from AIS detect to AIS transmit, which is a way of sending information out to ships, VHF communications, weather, and we work with all kinds of partners to put different equipment on these, whether it be the Coast Guard or AOS for some weather information, or a local community who wants something and this is really especially in Alaska and in remote regions where there's not a lot of infrastructure and there's not a lot of equipment to do this, is really important up there. And all that comes into the 24/7 monitoring center, where we actually do what we call sea traffic management. And I heard David talking about, you know, all these research vessels and what they're doing and tracking. That's really what we have, is a maritime operations center where we can track vessels and see where they're going and help prevent conflicts, whether it's vessel conflict, vessel to shore conflict with maybe an environmentally sensitive area, or, you know, a community or an activity that's going on. I'll talk a little more about that. And I think when Emily was going through her sides, I think I saw she's going through some of them quick because they weren't all applied. But I think I saw something that said they wanted somebody to talk to on shore. And that's really what this is bringing that collaboration ashore. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Arctic, I don't need to tell anybody here. This group knows all about the Arctic and what a hot topic it is, about the concerns and how dynamic it is. It's gaining more visibility in the lower 48, which continues to get more support, whether it's through government or through local communities. But it's a hot area. There's so much money that's been spent up here. I did 7 tours in Alaska. I've kind of been all over, but 4 ships up in Alaska. And my last ship, not a lot has changed in the Arctic if you were going up there as far as guidance or regulations or governance. Yet the concerns continue to mount, especially if you talk about, let's go to the next slide, the local communities. You know, you talk about the Arctic at the highest levels of government and all these strategic plans and all that, but right down to the communities. And I heard people talk about engaging with communities, and that's important, but I think it's almost more than engagement. There's got to be direct involvement. There's direct ownership, the concerns there of the way of life, protecting it, and the way it's being affected. And certainly that's one pillar of Arctic Watch is working from the communities up, and not engagement, but involvement with the communities. Next slide, please. So we talk about regulations. I love this slide. For those of you who've seen it before, I apologize, but this one tells a great story. This when I was sitting on the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council wearing a Coast Guard hat, and the mayor of St. Paul came and threw this slide up and said, "Hey, this is our fur seal rookery at St. Paul. Those are all the fur seals out there in the rocks and in the water next to the boats there. And this is a 3-mile do not enter zone." And he's like, this cruise ship and these folks in these boats are obviously a little closer than 3 miles. So while there's a law that says you don't go in there, whatever damage that's caused already happened. We can take action after the fact and write tickets and stuff, but really the damage has already been done, and that kind of stuff. We have the technology and the capabilities to prevent this. We should be doing that kind of stuff. So next slide. And this is really what we're talking about, using technology and that live watch to help manage all these concerns up in the Arctic, and working from like I say, the local level all the way up to groups like this that are coordinating, at a very high level, but kind of having a place to bring all that coordination into one spot. For vessels, this is voluntary, participation, but there's mandatory guidance like staying out of rookeries or areas to be avoided, that also can be worked, and use that live watch and capabilities that are out there to really coordinate that interaction between the boats on the water and communities ashore, and whether that be local communities or governmental or NGOs, lots of opportunities here. Next slide, please. And this is just a real quick kind of example. I'm not going to read through this, but on the left side, it's just saying there's people who have an interest in what's going on. And there's a lot of stovepipes, I call them, a lot of people doing good work out there. And there's, I don't know how many millions are being spent in the Arctic just this year, much less over the past few years, of people doing great stuff in there, and information to be shared. On the right is just some examples of that information. I even heard more today. David, I really think that what you were saying about all these research vessels, knowing where they are, coordinating, making sure they're all doing the same thing. Again, you're talking about putting them on the spreadsheet and tracking all that, but putting that into like something like an operations center, which is the capability we're talking about in the middle, an Arctic operations center, to address all these concerns, and kind of have a place where collaboration happens using this technology and the live watch that's always watching what's going on in this area. And this goes on in other parts of Alaska, but the Arctic, it needs some attention. It's funded really through industry a lot in other parts of the country. There's not enough industry to fund this in the Arctic, but Arctic's probably the most important place for this kind of activity to be going on. Next slide. And this is where I'm going to kind of go through just some examples real quick to give an idea, some meat on the bones. And I'll talk about some of these kind of tenets of the Watch Center. Next slide. Everything from this, let's see what comes up, providing environmental data. This is not just the sites we have ashore, but we incorporate in NOAA, the buoys out there that NOAA has, and we transmit that via AIS to a vessel that might be going in or heading towards one of those areas. The example I use is a boat coming out Cross Sound, heading up for the fair weather grounds in Alaska. Before you get on the outside of the Gulf of Alaska, it'd be nice to know what that buoy's doing out there, and you get transmitted that via AIS right before you head out into the Gulf. Again, partners are critical on this. Next slide. Assisting vessel in distress. A couple quick examples. This is a boat that broke down. Those of you who are familiar with the Selendang IU, a boat that broke down, didn't let anybody know for a long time, 15 hours-ish, was close to shore. They didn't need to be that close. Ended up breaking apart on the rocks, oil spill, soybean spill, helicopter, Coast Guard helicopter lost in the rescue. People died, all preventable. This is a ship that broke down, didn't notify the Coast Guard right away. The Marine Exchange Watch Center notified the Coast Guard. They got tugs out there, arrested this thing. It was about 3 miles away from shore when it finally got caught there. And the other one's just a boat that wrecked, and we use this technology to locate exactly where they were versus going and doing search patterns trying to find them. We were able to use this and pull 4 people out of the water. Next slide. Preventing disasters. Here's a boat, kind of maybe kind of like that French cruise ship that was in that rookery. This is a boat that's getting ready to go through an area to be avoided, an IMO area that says, hey, please don't go through here, use these other passes. It was detected. The watch reached out to him, said, hey, do you mean to go through there? They, oh, our bad, we're sorry. And you can see their reply there, we're altering course. And now they went over in the pass they were supposed to go through. And you think about this is exactly, I think, what David was talking about when he's talking about helping vessels avoid getting in trouble with the community or whatever the concern is up there. Next slide, please. And then we're using this for wildlife. On the left right there, the right whales, we're in Unimak Pass, right where all this great circle traffic route comes through Alaska. NOAA wanted to get a broadcast out to them, worked through the Coast Guard to get this transmitted from one of our sites, just telling vessels, hey, slow down right now in Unimak Pass, because right now the right whales are there. We don't need you to slow down, clear out by 200 miles away out near ADAC, but we do need you to slow down and look out for these whales, and please let us know if they're there in Unimak. You can use this equipment dynamically. The bottom is a walrus rookery that we're doing for Fish and Wildlife, saying, please don't come in here at certain times of the year because the big walrus are going to trample over the little walrus. And you prevent that from happening instead of dealing with the aftermath if it did happen. And then just a speed zone on there. Next slide. I'm trying to get through these here fairly quick, and just using the technology to do things like we display an electronic buoy down at Cook Inlet for the Coast Guard. You could do that with the shipping lanes, the IMO shipping lanes and stuff up in the Arctic, so you're not having to send a buoy tender up there a couple times a year to put buoys in, take them out over a huge area, and you can move these buoys electronically based on ice, wildlife impacts, whatever the concerns are that you're doing. Next slide. And deconflicting maritime use. Are we conducting research right in an area where they're trying to subsistence fish at that time? Are we doing lightering activity in an area where the communities are going to be conducting some hunting activities or whaling activity, or in bad weather? The cruise traffic that's going up there. So just taking all the concerns again and bringing them to a watch center that can watch what's going on dynamically, work with the vessels or the people in the area to make sure we don't have conflicts up there. And this gives a great tool for this. Next slide. All right, so that's kind of it. I went through that as quick as I could. I'll tell you, other countries are doing things like Arctic Watch. Norway's got a Barents Watch, where it includes fisheries management, not just these safety concerns and sharing weather. And a lot of the data and research that you guys are doing here, having a hub where that kind of information can be shared with the mariners and the people on the water, where we actually can have some impact on what's going on right now. And it isn't just the same as it was 15 years ago. If you were to sail a boat up there, you're actually getting more information. We have a way of sharing information back and forth. So I'll open it up for questions there, and I hope I didn't go too long.
Thank you for that. I was making some notes. Questions for Steve? Anything about Arctic Watch or?
Yeah. What?
Go ahead, Steve.
One thing I probably should have added is this is not, and this is a big, and I should have put a slide in there to get this, but this is not this is a very collaborative effort. This is working with NGOs, working with government agencies. This doesn't work if it's not collaborative, and the local communities. So this isn't meant to be a stovepipe. This is really meant to be a way of bringing stovepipes together and collaborate that. And the more people that work in this space and bring stuff here, just the more valuable it is. So that's the most important part. And that's, I guess, the message that I would share to this group is this is a place to bring information into and get it out. So.
David and then Allison.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And so this is exactly why you're here. We were super excited. I put this in the chat, but I just wanted to give voice to it. This is exactly why you're here. We were really excited to learn about the Arctic Watch, and let's talk about how we can improve the dissemination of the information that we're already collecting, and try to make things even better. So let's maybe, obviously we can't do this in this context, but let's try to figure out a time to talk and figure out what the next iteration, next improvements might be for the field operations community of practice. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet, David. And we do use a satellite. We're tracking boats all the way across, coming out of China, North Korea, Far East, all the way to Panama Canal and up and down the West Coast, working with the other marine exchanges. So absolutely.
Great. Allison?
Oh, thank you. Actually, Steve, you just answered my question. I was curious if you guys were now providing or utilizing satellite AIS beyond Alaska's waters. And it sounds like you are.
Yeah, and Allison, I'll tell you one thing because we're doing some of this management, like I said, beyond port and really at sea. And I could tell other stories about how we do that and what we've done and the benefits in other areas. But what I will say is, yeah, we're using satellite, but there's room for more. There's people that are putting radars up for different reasons. We could bring radar feeds into the watch center. We don't have to go build a whole radar thing, but somebody's got one up there for research. And now we bring this radar feed in. Now you can go, oh yeah, here's all our AIS data, and it corresponds with what we're seeing via radar. Or the community can call and go, hey, I got a boat out here. What is it? Oh, that's a Kuliak. It's a research vessel. We have it on AIS. It's supposed to be there. Oh, we don't have anything there. Thank you for alerting that. Is that a Homeland Security concern? Is that just somebody whose equipment isn't broadcasting? So yeah, again, bringing all that information into one command center, operations center, we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is, we're looking for how we can better intersect with Arctic Watch. We know many years ago when industry was operating heavily, they funded local people where you can have direct contact with somebody in communities to let them know, hey, we're coming by. And those were funded positions. That went away. We've looked at how we could still stay in contact with communities, let them know where research vessels are. But we have nothing to say about other commercial vessels, tourist vessels, or other ship operators. And so there's a whole big wide ship world out there that the science community we can only kind of wrap our arms around what we have going on for research. And so almost 10 years ago, we made a commitment to the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission to put together this summary, this matrix, we call it, of the research vessels, so that we could communicate to the communities, or they could at least find out in a pretty quick and easy way what the vessel is, what the research is they're doing, how to get in touch directly with that vessel if there was any issue. And also as a way to communicate among the research community, hey, here's different vessels, here's where they're going, here's a little bit about the research and measurements that they're collecting, so we could get, maybe stimulate some more collaboration. But we still have that ship to shore piece. We've been putting people on research vessels so that they can broadcast out through email lists and other ways, pictures and descriptions of what's happening on the ship. But the real-time vessel tracking, Allison's worked on creating a module in the Arctic Research Mapping application where you can see real-time vessels. We even have a hard time just saying, like, here's a vessel, here's a research cruise track and the measurements that were collected from it. So we have a lot of other issues that kind of dovetail or have, there's, good amount of intersection with what Arctic Watch is trying to do. And then similarly with the moorings. And it occurs to me, does it make sense to put a digital navigational aid on, where the moorings are, for example, that are in the navigable waters, or other buoys, research buoys that people have out. And we also turn loose ice tethered instrumentation that float with the sea ice, around different parts of the Arctic. So I think there's, there may be opportunities for us to push information toward Arctic Watch or utilize that platform in some way to help get out more information beyond just the matrix that we've produced, or leverage that matrix so that more people know about what ships are in the area, what they're doing, how to get in touch with them if they're, our whole modus operandi is to avoid any interference with subsistence hunting. You won't see a research vessel doing what that tourist vessel is doing. And we're very adamant that we don't want to conduct ourselves that way. So more that we can do to get information out and make it accessible, help people track for safety, as well as just coordination with communities. We want more of that.
Renee, I'll say this, 100% on what you said. The leadership in meaning, hey, let's get maritime domain awareness out there of our activities has never been by anybody more than the research community. But that is only one sliver of the vessel traffic out there. But some of the other slivers, whether it be foreign or whether it be other activities up there, like you said, there isn't necessarily that effort to get that MDA awareness and that communication with the communities like you guys have done. So I think the research community has a really leadership opportunity here to say, hey, how can we get not just our activities known and collaborated up there, but with everybody that's going up there, because the resources from the research community are greater that are being spent in the Arctic than any other community out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And we are talking with State Department about foreign vessel requests that are for research. I think we're also seeing some tourist vessels are couching themselves as conducting research activities as part of their sort of luxury cruise, be part of science as well. So there's a lot happening, a lot of blurring of the lines, I think. Yeah.
In my past life, my other job, we tracked a lot of research vessels, and they weren't the U.S. research vessels that we were tracking. So
yeah, exactly. So I think there's more we can do to maybe leverage some of this work and some of the conversations we're having about vessel traffic to just better corral things and make it safer and better for communities on the coast.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, and provide that information to the communities that they've been asking for since 2014. Hey, we want better MBA, we want better way to interact with the vessel. So, sorry.
Exactly. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions for Steve or our other presenters? I know a number of people had to depart for their other meetings at the top of the hour. Sarah, other things you want to, before we should circle back about pre-field meeting?
Yeah, just one thing is that we do have the post-field season meeting scheduled for January 17th. So any researchers, if you could think about whether or not you'd like to present, we will probably be in contact with you very soon. And any other interested parties, we invite you to join us. We really want to share some of the research that's been going on this past year and have this be a very collaborative conversation. So just a note to save the date for January 17th, from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, sorry, your sound quality is just a little bit, like there's interference from another planet. We can hear your voice, but there's just some background, clicking in there, so just for your information. And anything else, David or Katie, before we sign off?
No, I just a big thank you to our presenters, and thanks for the information. We'll be in touch. I think it's a representation of a lot of really exciting work across the spectrum. Such an amazing community, and it's the only way folks who are dedicated to making the community better are the only way things that actually get better. So just thank you for all of your work. It's just amazing to watch.
Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.